Let's get it, 580 Sports Talk. Going up on a Tuesday on the sports voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And this program being streamed on video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on our Facebook page, WIBW News. However you are listening or watching today's show, thanks for checking us out and hanging out for the next 2.5 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Dan Lucero, solo dolo for the moment. The cast will be checking in as we go along today. Spencer Dupuis will be in just a bit. And here in moments, we'll hear from Brendan Dworzinski, who is our boots on the ground in Evansville, Indiana, as the Division II men's basketball Elite Eight is underway. Of course, the nightcap tonight, the Washburn Ichabods playing in the Elite Eight for the first time in 24 years, taking on the Lenore-Rhine Bears tonight. An 8:30 tip-off scheduled, an 8:15 pregame show over on our sister station, your home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9 with Brendan on the call. So he's a little busy today, unable to join us for the full show, but he'll be calling our line here in just a little bit, and we will get him on the air from Evansville, get his thoughts on the day's action that has already unfolded, and a preview of tonight's game between the Ichabods and the Bears. See if Washburn can get through to the Final Four. We'll also hear from Washburn head coach Brett Ballard. Brendan got a chance to catch up with him earlier this afternoon, so we'll bring that conversation to you here this hour as well. Get you fired up for Ichabod basketball. There is a lot of excitement around here, I know, for this Washburn team and what they have already accomplished and what lies in front of them, hopefully the remainder of the week out there at the Ford Center in Evansville. So we're leading the show with that. Brendan's going to join us here in just a little bit, and we will get his thoughts, his preview of tonight's Washburn game, and we'll hear, of course, from the Ichabod head coach. We've also got Royals to talk about on the show today. It is Royals week, after all, here on 580 Sports Talk, and part 2 of Royals week today. We'll talk about the pitching, the Royals' arms. I feel better about the Royals' pitching depth going into this year, and I will explain to you why that is the case. And I'll also talk about what's really going to be important for the Royals, because I think we make a lot of the idea that it is unlikely that they will have the same luck as they did last year, as far as they had the same 6 guys start 157 of 162 games, and that's exceedingly rare and exceedingly unlikely to happen again, you might say. But eliminate that from the equation, look at it a different way, and I think you might feel a little bit better about where the Royals stand, even if there are some injuries or misfortunes that befall the top 5 in the Royals starting rotation. So get into that, talk some Royals. The roster is set, by the way. The 26th man is all but confirmed, and the Royals are just finishing up spring training action or preseason exhibition, however you want to call it. They're wrapping up their final game before the ones that matter this afternoon in Texas. Chris Bubich had a few strikeouts. Salvi hit a home run. They're still playing down there in Globe Life Field, but today's game is really about just getting it done as fast as you can without getting anybody hurt, and then getting to wherever it is you need to go for opening day. In the Royals' case, it's back home to Kansas City. They are in the 6th inning. And the Royals have a 3-1 lead presently. But again, today's game, get in the box and swing the bat. Get on the mound and throw it over the plate. Let's get this over with, and let's go play real games. We are that much closer to doing exactly that. So we will talk some Royals on the program today. Also, it is a Tuesday. That means we do Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Michael Swain's going to check in with us. Michael Swain, our friend from Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. And we will get Michael's post-mortem thoughts on the year that was for Kansas basketball and where the Jayhawks go from here. What must be accomplished this offseason, And we'll talk a little football, too, because spring practice still ongoing for KU football. And Michael Swain's been in those press conferences, and we'll get his thoughts on the latest he's hearing and observing from KU spring football practice. Plenty of ground to cover with Michael Swain of Fog.net at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We are off early today for some baseball of the K-State variety. Little midweek action for the Wildcats from the K-State Sports Network. K-State taking on Nebraska tonight. Little old school Big 8 baseball for you, if you will. Wildcats, Huskers, 5:30 broadcast time here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So we're done at 5:30 today. So we've covered the big stuff on the menu. Of course, there's also all of the things you come to know and love from the program on a Tuesday. We'll do our headlines, top of the 5 o'clock hour. What is wrong with you in the 4 o'clock hour? Random Question Tuesday coming up in just a little bit as well. We want to hear from you throughout the program today. Get in on the text line. The text line number is 785-272-9429. That is the number, 785-272-9429. Would love to hear from you on the text line today. Also, if you are watching the program on our video stream, you can interact with us in the chat on YouTube. Again, the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. Looks like we've added some subscribers. Keep pushing that number up and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have yet to do so. But if you are watching the show live on YouTube today, jump on in that chat, interact with your hosts, interact with each other as we go along on the show today. Hello to Vance, Paul, and Christopher, and everybody else who is in with us today, checking us out on 580 Sports Talk. Again, Brendan's going to join us in just a bit from Evansville, and we're going to get his thoughts on what has already transpired and what will transpire tonight, most germanely to us, at the Division II Men's Basketball Elite Eight. I have one big question about the hashtag that they are using at the Elite Eight. I have to get that question answered. It feels like I'm reading it wrong. It feels like it can't be what it looks obviously to be. And so I have some questions for Brendan in that regard. But we're going to get his thoughts on tonight's matchup for the Washburn Ichabods as they take on Lenore-Ryan in the 4-5 matchup in this Elite Eight. Do not get either Brendan or I started on Washburn being the number 4 seed in this tournament. Do not get us started. Brendan may have already spoken his piece on that when the seeding came out. I'm just going to say, don't get me started. I'm just going to say they got it wrong. They got it way, way wrong, making Washburn the number 4 seed in this tournament. But, you know, it is what it is, and Lenore-Ryan is in Washburn's way. And if Washburn wants to prove they should have been a higher seed, they can start by making Lenore-Ryan pay here tonight. It is, again, an 8:30 start. Lots of watch parties in the area in Topeka. If you want to go out and watch the game tonight, there are plenty of local establishments, including our friends at Skinny's Sports Bar and Grill, who will have the game on TV tonight. It'll be on ESPN Plus. So if you are an ESPN Plus subscriber, feel free to join us and watch the game. And of course, if you want to listen to the program, listen to Brendan's broadcast, you can do so over on our sister station, the home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. People are fired up in the YouTube comments. Paul says, go Bods. And Christopher believes they're going to do it tonight. Says the real chance MIAA might have both the men's and the women's champions this season. That is true. Pitt State women are in the Final Four on the women's side. They won last night. I forget who they beat. I'm trying to remember who it was off the top of my head, but they got a good win last night, and quite a few Kansas kids on that Pitt State roster, just as there are on the Washburn roster. So it would be pretty cool to see the national champions in both Division II men's and women's basketball be MIAA teams from the state of Kansas. No doubt about that. And you know Washburn's going to carry the banner high tonight for the MIAA and for the state of Kansas. It's been one of the most rewarding things, truly, about this Washburn team is the local flavor. And local as in hyper-local, as in Jack Batchelor, Topeka's own, Washburn Rural Junior Blue, both of his parents, Washburn alums and former Washburn basketball players. So it means a whole lot to Jack, certainly, that not only has he been a part of this, he's been a all-conference part of this Washburn run. You look at the rest of the lineup, Andrew Orr, Blue Valley North, Jacob Hanna, Mays High, lots of Kansas kids on this roster. Brett Ballard is a Kansas guy, Kansas connections. So you do definitely have that local and in-state flavor that makes this not just a cool story for a Washburn alum or somebody who pays close attention to Washburn athletics, but really across the state's sporting landscape, it's pretty cool to see what Washburn has done. We're going to get Brendan's thoughts on that in just a little bit here as we go here on 580 Sports Talk today. He's going to dial in as soon as he has the occasion to do so. And in a little bit, we're going to hear from Brett Ballard as well, Brendan's conversation earlier today with the Washburn head coach. They will have their hands full. I mean, there are no easy games you get to this time of year, right? They'll have their hands full with Lenore Ryan, and in particular, their 7'2" center. They've got a big fella in the middle, Conrad Lazinski, who was the regional MVP for the regional that Lenore Ryan came out of. They've got 5 double-figure scorers. They can score the basketball. It's a lot of teams in Division II that can score the basketball. Washburn can score, and Washburn's a very good scoring team. Washburn will be playing a team that averages 87.5 points a game. But here's the thing about Lenore Ryan. They'll let you score it, too. They allow 79 points a game. If they were an MIAA team, that would be the worst mark in the MIAA. MIAA is a little bit of a different animal than Lenore Ryan's league. So that is one of the more intriguing parts of this matchup. Can Washburn figure out how to score in this game and not let it turn into just a back and forth YMCA light up the scoreboard kind of game? Can they play this game on their terms? Because Lenore Ryan looks a little bit more equipped to win a track meet than do the Ichabods. Of course, because it's the 4-5 game, winner of this game gets the number 1 seed potentially, unless there is an upset. And it would be very surprising if Assumption were to beat Nova Southeastern today. Nova Southeastern was number 1 for a good chunk of the season, and then after their loss, that was when Washburn ascended to number 1 in the country for a time before they stumbled just a little bit. But they are the late game tonight, Nova Southeastern, the Sharks against Assumption. They are the 3rd game of the 4, the 4th game being the Washburn game scheduled for 8:30. One game is already in the books today in Evansville. The number 3 seed Dallas Baptist beating the number 6 seed Lake Superior State. 98-85 was the final in that one. So, again, it's Division II basketball. A lot of these teams can score. And you're going to see some big numbers in the score column potentially in this tournament. Going to see a big number in the 2-7 game. They've still got 4 minutes to play in the first half. Number 2 seed West Liberty already has 40 points. They lead Cal State Dominguez Hills, the number 7 seed, by 8. 40-32 is the score in that one. What we're going to do now is take a quick timeout, and on the other side of it, we're going to see if we can connect with Brendan Dorzinski, get a preview of this game from Brendan, and get you some more information from Evansville as we get ready to see the Ichabods again play where no Ichabod men's team has played since 2001 when Bob Shipman's Bods were the national runners-up. Washburn against Lenore Ryan tonight is the matchup. And we'll hear from Brendan. We'll also hear from Brett Ballard. We got Michael Swain coming, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to talk Royals in the 4 o'clock hour. We're off at 5:30 today, so we've got plenty to pack into the next 2 hours or so here on 580 Sports Talk. So glad you're hanging out with us on this Tuesday here at 580 WIBW. Sometimes on this show, there are music beds we let ride a little bit longer than others, and Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult is definitely one of those. Great song. Dan Lucero hanging out with you here on 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday. We're going to hear from Brendan Dworzynski at the NCAA Men's Basketball Division II Elite Eight here in just a little bit. But first, earlier today, he had a chance to run down the head coach of the Ichabods, Brett Ballard. And Brett had, of course, plenty to say about tonight's contest and a little bit of a preview of the Washburn game against Lenoir-Rhyne in the Elite Eight in Evansville. So here is that conversation with Brett Ballard, the coach of the Ichabods, and the voice of the Ichabods, our Brendan Dworzynski.
Coach, let's just start here. It's been a week since you guys last played. Obviously had the long trip out here, had the stop in St. Louis. Now you guys had a fun time there. What has the lead up been like to the Elite Eight in general, to this game here on Tuesday night? What's sort of the overall energy and feeling for you and the guys?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's only been a week since we played, but it feels like it's been 6 months. And, when you play as well as we did in the regional, you almost wish you'd have about a day or two and then just get right back at it. And so our prep week, we tried to balance giving guys some rest mentally and physically, but also getting work in, kind of like we always do with these extended breaks between games. But I did feel like our practice sessions were good. And, obviously the guys are excited about the opportunity and appreciate what this means for our team and for our school. But played great in the regional. Really feel like we can take confidence from that. But it's a new tournament this weekend, so obviously got to show up and regroup and get back at it.
We'll get to Lenoir-Rhyne specifically in a moment, but when you take a moment to look at this field in general, obviously all regional champions who got here, some teams that have been here a bunch in recent years, what's sort of your overall thought about what this field looks like this year?
Yeah, I think it's, once again, really good. There's 2 or 3 different teams that press and trap, one on our side and a couple on the other side. So that's a little bit unique, those styles, and something you don't see as much of. But you just look at it, and to win any region in Division II means you've got a really good team. I look at the coaches that are here, and you watch their teams, and just well organized. There's a purpose behind what they do, and it's going to be extremely challenging to try to find a way to win 3 games.
We're chatting with Brett Ballard, head coach of the Washburn Ichabods, as we get ready for Washburn versus Lenoir-Rhyne here in the Elite Eight on Tuesday night. Let's talk about this Bears team. First time ever that you guys have played against them. That's 3 times and 4 opponents in the last couple of weeks. It's a brand new foe. They've got a lot of size down low. You guys had some experience with that, obviously, against Moorhead. What are some of the things they do that really stand out?
Yeah, they're, again, I just said it, but they're really well coached, watching the film. Very, very organized on both sides. I think, defensively, just very sound. They're not going to do anything out of the ordinary, and a pretty, kind of standard how they guard. But they're good at it, and they're connected on that side. I got the big fella inside who's 7'1", 7'2", and he's obviously a focal point that we've got to be concerned about on both sides. Defensively, he takes up a lot of space in there around the rim, and offensively, he's a challenge. Just because he's so big and physical around the rim. So. That's going to be a big focal point for us to try to slow him down. We've got to disrupt their offense with some pressure and not allow them easy post feeds, because if they're getting that ball in there easily, then it's hard to guard him once he catches it, especially if it's deep.
They can score in bunches. You guys obviously can score a ton, and we're as efficient offensively as you've been all season in the Central Region Tournament. Does this feel like a game, as much as you guys emphasize defense, that might be more of a shootout?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we have really taken pride in our defense, since I've been here. But this team is look at the defensive numbers for us, and I think the points per game is really good, but especially when you consider how many possessions we have, our points per possession is about as good as anybody in the country. So, not that I think we're just going to go shut everybody down, but we really believe in what we do, believe in our system, and our guys, I thought, really set the tone, especially in the regional, with how hard we guarded, and just it was a little bit of everything, just the ball pressure, the traps. When we did break down, we covered mistakes. We blocked a lot of shots. and got deflections and just made it really hard for those teams. And so again, this team is going to be tough to guard. I'm not saying that they're easy to guard, but I do believe that our guys will be turned up, and our game plan is to try to slow them down as much as possible.
We talked about this a bunch going into the regional games, and you guys had obviously that incredible home crowd behind you. But in an environment like this where there will be competing crowds and probably some neutral fans in there as well, how important is it to disrupt them early on and to jump on them quickly?
Yeah, I think that's probably, Brendan, one of my biggest concerns is how much that crowd helped us last week. And we'll have a good crowd here today, but it's just not going to be the same. Bigger arena, more of a neutral crowd because they're going to have fans here. And, I do really I thought that we would have played well regardless. I don't want to take anything away from our guys, but that crowd energy, and I think that the people that showed up deserve a lot of credit. It was phenomenal and gave us not only confidence, but just that energy. And so I think that, listen, you're in the Elite Eight, and you're on ESPN Plus and in front of a national audience and one of 8 teams left. So I know our guys are, don't get me wrong, they're going to be motivated and juiced up, and regardless of how much noise there is in the arena. But I do think that's going to be important for us to understand, like, it is going to be a little bit of a different feel. We've got to bring a little bit more of that on our own, and just understand that we're not going to have that crowd behind us as much. I think we'll have a great crowd, but we need to handle that the right way. I think our guys, again, veteran team, mature team, I think that we'll do fine with that, but that will be a key.
Brett Ballard is the head coach of the Washburn Ichabods, who will play in the Elite Eight for the first time in 24 years tonight against the Bears of Lenoir-Rhyne. Coach, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Again, that's Brett Ballard. That's a conversation that Brendan Dworzinski had with the head coach of the Washburn Ichabods. And speaking of Brendan Dworzinski, he joins us now on the Floating Place Wine and Spirits hotline from Evansville, Indiana. Brendan, I understand you're a pretty popular guy out there.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you, Dan. And yeah, lots of Washburn folks making the trip out. We're just chatting with some folks who are longtime supporters, a couple former players in town as well. Man, the energy for this program right now is as good as I have gotten to experience it over the last few years, and certainly the last 2 as the voice of the team. So it's a positive energy for Washburn. You see a lot of Ichabod stuff walking around today. So it's exciting, man. This place is going to be popping off tonight, and I think a lot of Topeka folks are going to be here for this one.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I've been hearing a lot about alumni and some alumni groups that are going to try and make the trip out, and I do think that there's going to be a presence in that building. And it's a Division II, and it's in Evansville, and we talked about it on the show yesterday. Not every program is going to be able to travel or have a fan presence at this thing. So the programs that do, it's a nice little advantage for them. And I think that might be an advantage, something that helps the Ichabods tonight.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And you heard in that last question I asked the coach about, you go from having sellout crowds at Lee Arena this past week, and there's no denying how big of an impact that had in those wins over Concordia and Moorhead and Harding and all of that. So you go from a crowd like that to all of a sudden you're going to have the diehards who are here, but there are also going to be Lenoir-Rhyne fans. There are going to be fans from other schools that say, well, shoot, it's already late at night. Let's just stick around and watch some more good basketball. So it's going to be a much different environment. So I think for everybody who comes out, being able to feed off of their energy is going to be huge. And if it's a big enough deal that coach is telling me that he's concerned about it, I think he feels like it's a pretty dang big deal too.
Talking to Brendan Dworzinski from Evansville. 1.5 games are in the books out there at the Ford Center. We mentioned earlier today, number 3 seed DBU, Dallas Baptist, beating the 6 seed Lake Superior State 98-85. Halftime score in the second game, the number 2 seed West Liberty with a 50-39 lead over Cal State Dominguez Hills. And I guess my first question, Brendan, is, are the rims regulation size? Are they a couple of inches bigger? Like what do we credit this scoring explosion to start the day at the Elite Eight?
You know, it's so funny you phrase it like that, Dan, that it's a scoring explosion, because to those of us who live in MIAA territory or even NSIC territory up north of us, this is like, whoa, this is like NBA scoring here. This is just what Division II basketball is in the rest of the country, especially for these East Coast teams. Dallas Baptist, who scored a bunch earlier today in their win over Lake Superior State as well. Like, they just score a ton. And is it because it's good offense? Yes, it absolutely is. but it's not the same kind of defense that we see in the MIAA. And anyone who's been to a Washburn game or watched it on the network or listened along on Country 106.9 all year, like, this Washburn team plays defense. And I'm not trying to say these aren't going to be tough matchups, because they are, but similar to what Coach told me a little bit earlier that we just heard, it's a different brand of basketball. It's entirely different. There are 3 different teams here, for example, West Liberty, Dallas Baptist, who played earlier, and then in the first game of the second session, number 1 seed Nova Southeastern. They press on everything. It's not just every make, every miss, every free throw, every inbound in the backcourt. It is press the entire game. So you end up getting a bunch of steals and you get a bunch of easy looks off of those. However, if the other team beats your press, you're giving up a lot of layups and good looks on the other side from the floor as well. So you just end up with these games that are so incredibly high scoring. And then you compare that to Washburn, where if the Ichabods crack 90, oh my God, they must have just smoked someone. Whereas some of these other teams, I mean, they're scoring 90 a game. Nova Southeastern averages, I think, upwards of like 108 points per game. It's like a completely different sport when you factor in some of these teams from the East Coast, or at least from conferences outside the MIAA.
So then the big question, Brendan Dworzinski, voice of the Ichabods, co-host of 580 Sports Talk, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline from Evansville in the Division II Elite 8, where Washburn plays Lenoir-Rhyne later tonight. How does Washburn get this game played on their terms, more comfortable, more familiar terms? Is that kind of going to dictate how Washburn does out here, whether or not they're able to control tempo and dictate pace?
I think you're 100% right with that. And again, the funny thing about it is Washburn wants to play fast. Washburn wants to set those ball screen traps in the front court, get steals near center court, have runouts, play up and down basketball, but it's still such a different kind of play than we're going to see from a bunch of these other teams that I almost want to say Washburn needs to slow these teams down and drag them into the mud, which really isn't accurate, because Washburn wants to play such a tempo-based and transition-based game. But by comparison, they're probably one of the slowest teams in the field out of these 8. So I think dictating the pace is going to be important. Ball security is going to determine every game that Washburn plays, whether it's the one tonight against Lenoir-Rhyne or any potential future games Thursday and Saturday as well. You have to be careful with the ball, because these teams will take advantage of it. I saw it earlier in the first game of the day specifically. Dallas Baptist was down by 1 at the half, then goes on a 20-4 run to open the second half, entirely because their opponents from Sault Ste. Marie, they could not hold the ball. They just kept turning it over, throwing it away. That is going to be the single most important thing. If you got to burn the whole shot clock, burn the whole shot clock. You trust this team, especially the starting 5. They're going to make their shots, but you have got to be careful with the ball, because all these other teams are too good in transition. They're going to make you pay. Against Lenoir-Rhyne in particular, this is going to come up on the broadcast. I think it's a fascinating stat. They finished 4th in their conference, Stan, the South Atlantic Conference, 4th in points per game allowed. Their 79.7 points per game allowed would have been dead last by multiple points in the MIAA. It's just completely different kinds of basketball. So I think if Washburn's able to slow it down just a smidge, not turn the ball over too much, they're going to force the Bears into playing a style of basketball that, frankly, they just don't really know how to play.
All right, a couple more questions for you, Brendan, and then we'll let you go. First of all, who is the name to know for Lenoir-Rhyne tonight? Who is the guy to keep an eye on, and that Washburn has to make sure that they do not let have too great a say in who wins tonight?
All right, so I'm gonna pull my notes out here because I want to make sure I get his name right. You'll never believe it. There's an Eastern European name on here, and I need to make sure that I know how to get it right. It's Konrad Luczynski. I thought I had it right. He's an Illinoisan, in fact. But Konrad Luczynski, he's the big man, 7'2". Now, Washburn has experience with a 7-footer from the regional final. You just have to go back to this past Tuesday when they took on Jacob Jennison of MSU Moorhead, and Washburn rendered him completely ineffective. I mean, Jennison had pretty much no impact on that game after the first about 2 possessions of it. So Washburn did great with his size. Washburn, as we know, is a little bit undersized when another team can throw out a 7-footer, and Washburn can throw out 2 guys who are 6'8". Obviously, there's a bit of a mismatch there, but the Ichabods have been really good against some of those taller players over the course of the year. Their physicality, those traps, the help side defense has all been really good. So you've got to slow down Luczynski. You can't let him get too many looks, especially when Lenoir-Rhyne is trying to run. Zaire Wells as well. He's another transfer. He was the conference newcomer of the year in the SAC conference. Also, the Stack. Come on, guys. South Atlantic. You got to change your name there, man. But anyway, he was the newcomer of the year in that conference. He can really fill it up. Again, not an elite shooter, but once he gets out and runs with a full head of steam, that's when he is his most dangerous. So it's really those two guys, to me, at least in my scouting report, Dan, that if you can slow down the break for Wells and not allow easy looks underneath for Luczynski, I think that's the way Washburn is going to want to attack this, to try to limit their good offensive looks as much as possible.
On the flip side then, Brendan, who is the most important Ichabod tonight? It's been a team effort all season long. It's never been like you go into a game and you know who's going to be the leader in scoring, or you know who's going to be the best player night in, night out for Washburn. It's part of the reason why they've done what they've done, achieved what they've achieved, and gotten to where they've gotten to. But who needs to be excellent tonight? Whether that's offensively with their defensive assignment, who really needs to have a big game tonight for Washburn to advance to the Final Four?
I think you could probably make an argument for almost anybody based on the things we've already talked about. Like, okay, talking about ball security, Jack Batchelor, he's got to be great. He's been great all year. If you're talking about this game turns into a shootout, you've got to keep up scoring with them. Braden Shorter from three-point range is obviously going to be huge. I think Andrew Orr is going to be massive in this game down low, one of those 6'8" guys for Washburn. He's a veteran. He's ready for this. We're going to hear from Andrew a little bit later in the week should Washburn advance. He was built for this moment. He's excited for it. I know he's excited about this matchup too, talking a little bit about how he feels a little bit. He's always felt a little undersized for being a quote-unquote big man, but he's looking forward to the matchup against Luczynski. He's going to stay out of foul trouble. If Orr is on the floor, there are very few teams that can slow down his offensive attack. It's just about staying out of foul trouble. But, and I know I'm double dipping here, the one other guy who I have to point to is Jacob Hanna, the transfer from Illinois Springfield, because I will tell you this, Dan, they don't make a lot of those. They do not make a whole lot of Jacob Hannas. They do not make him in the SAC or the Mountain East or the Sunshine State Conference, any of that. There are guys who play defense like that and can turn it into offense on the other side, like number 5 for Washburn. So I think Orr down low, just staying on the floor, and then Jacob Hanna doing what he does on the defensive side of the ball. I think those are the two key guys for Washburn. If they're tuned up, if they are locked in, it's hard to beat this team, man. We've seen it all year. They are hard to beat when those two guys are playing to their full potential.
Washburn and Lenoir-Rhyne tip at 8:30 at the Ford Center in Evansville tonight in the 4-5 game at the Division II Men's Basketball Elite Eight. Brendan Dworzynski will be on the call on our sister station, your exclusive home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. Pregame at 8:15. Again, that 8:30 tip-off. And if you have ESPN Plus to watch the game tonight, sync it up with Brendan's call. I'm sure he'd appreciate that, and I'm sure you'll get a better broadcast. Brendan, have a great call tonight, and go Bods. We'll talk to you soon.
Go Bods. Appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
That is Brendan Dworzynski coming to us live from Evansville. We'll take a timeout, come back with a little Random Question Tuesday on the other side here on 580 Sports Talk. 346 on 580 Sports Talk. Our thanks again to Brendan Dworzinski for joining us for a hit from Evansville. Looking forward to his call tonight as the Ichabods play in the Elite Eight for the first time since 2001. Right now here on 580 Sports Talk, time for a little Random Question Tuesday. And Spencer Dupuis is in with us now to join the show. Spencer, I'm going to let you ask your question first today. I'm going to be generous and let you ask your question first, because sometimes we do have to kind of jump over you on random question if we get rolling a little too long on my question or Brendan's question. So let's let you go first today. What do you got?
Mine actually spurs from a post on Blue Sky from our pal Brendan. Last night he posted, stopped in a barbecue place for dinner tonight. They're out of nearly everything. Hope the pork is good. And then he followed that up by saying, Evansville, not exactly known for its barbecue scene. So my random question is, what town or area were you in that was not known for something that you went to try and it turned out bad?
It turned out bad.
Or turned out good.
Or turned out good. Yeah.
Whatever, you know.
You took a risk.
Yes, you took a risk going to said food place in an area and it turned out good, or like a memorable story, whether it's good or bad.
Okay, so I'll go back to my college years for both of these. Greencastle, Indiana, West Central Indiana had a crazy good Chinese food place. Like, so good. Number one Chinese is what it was called. And it might be number one. It really might. It might be still the best I've ever had to this day. They had a great special for college students. That may be why it was more memorable, because it was cheap for college students. Like $6. You got an entree, you got rice, you got egg roll, and you got a crab rangoon and a drink for $6. I'm sure now it costs like $11.99. But back in the college days, back in 2007, that was $6. And it was good eats. So again, you would not consider that to necessarily be where you would find really good Chinese food. But I found really good Chinese food there. Flip side, margaritas. Take my margaritas very seriously. I enjoy a margarita with Mexican food, right? So it was my graduation, and I had my family out to visit, and we all went to dinner at one of the on-campus restaurants, one of the on-campus bars, the Fluttering Duck, it was called.
Okay.
I loved the Fluttering Duck. It had great wings, great potato skins, a big TV to watch like a ball game or something. Fluttering Duck was great. And you could use your student account. You swipe your card. Not alcohol, mind you. But everything else, you could swipe for your food. Now, booze, you had to pay for on your own. One night, I got snort drunk on amaretto sours. It's a long story. Anyway, so the Luceros and my both sets of grandparents are there, and we ordered a margarita. Somebody ordered a margarita, and it came out looking like dirty dishwater. And I believe it was my grandfather. My grandfather was a liquor, worked in liquor distribution and owned bars. So he knew a little something about how to mix a drink. My mom's dad, who has since passed. And he asked, what'd you put in that? And I believe the gentleman said it was something along the lines of lemonade, Sprite, and tequila. That was to this day, that is what I refer to as an Indiana margarita. My grandfather went behind the bar and showed that young man how to make a margarita.
Oh my God.
So that is my story. What do you got?
So back in college, we, as a student station, we went to cover Marshall on the road a few times.
Sure.
We went to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. For Middle Tennessee State. The only school sanctioned game that I called that was we went on as a school whole group. So first night we were driving down there, we stopped at the best barbecue place in the world, Corky's.
Okay.
Great barbecue. The best. The next night after the game, we went to some little restaurant place, and I decided to get pizza. Not good.
No.
They messed up pizza so bad.
How do you mess up pizza?
It was hard as a rock. They overcooked it. Mm-hmm. The sauce was I've never tasted sour sauce. Yeah, it was not good. Oh, but man. we had two ends of the spectrum, great, amazing barbecue. And then I got pizza the next night, and it was horrible.
Hard to screw up pizza unless you're from St. Louis, and they just call it, this is St. Louis style. We screwed this up on purpose. This sucks on purpose. This crappy pizza is our thing. My random question today. Give me your favorite opening day memory. Opening day, of course, is coming up Thursday for the Royals. Doesn't mean you had to have been there. Just first day, new season, a favorite game, a favorite memory, a favorite opening day. Want to hear yours too. Get them in on the YouTube live chat. Get them in on the text line, 785-272-9429. Favorite opening day memory, Spencer?
Was it 2014 maybe? I'm trying to think of the date. Bryce Harper hit like 3 homers in a game.
Yeah, 3 homer opening day?
Or 2 or 3 homer opening day. I can't remember what it was, but he was on pace for like, whatever time 162 times 3 was, and it was I think it was against
2013. 2013.
Yes, 2013. That was like, the big everyone was tuned in because the Nats had come off their first division or first playoff bout that they'd ever been to, and everybody was watching, and he did that in that game, and that was one of my favorite opening days.
That's awesome. 2013, first 2 opening day at bats for Bryce Harper were home runs. My favorite opening day, and I've had the pleasure to go to a few. I remember going to one at Coors Field. This would have been 2003. Sean Chacon took a no-hitter into the 6th inning, which I think is as far as I've ever seen a no-hitter in person. One day I'm going to be at one day. I think my favorite game opening day, probably 2005. Clint Barmas hit a walk-off home run off of Trevor Hoffman to win. The Rockies beat the Padres, and I remember being really psyched. Like I was in college, a freshman in college, so I ran up and down the dorm room, super excited. This was before I could afford MLB TV because I was, broke college student. So I'm sitting there watching the game day, the in-play runs. That blue circle shows up on the game day screen. It says in-play runs, and I started hooting and hollering. The Rockies lost like 94 games that year. It was not the prelude to anything special, but those are 2 of my absolute favorite opening day memories. Text from 913 says, favorite opening day will be Thursday if I can get tickets. Hey, if you know where to get them, let us know.
Yeah.
They are sold out.
I will say, so I was trying to look up what game it was. 2017, there's a USA Today article. Through 2017's opening day, Bryce Harper had his 5th career opening day homer.
Yeah, he likes to go deep on opening day.
Yeah,
he does. He's kind of made that a thing.
Yeah.
I hope he does this year. He's on my fantasy team. Anyhow, we'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We will wrap up this hour of 580 Sports Talk after this. Talking about favorite opening day memories, Barbara in the YouTube comment says Thursday will be her first opening day game in attendance. So that's a nice milestone. It's always fun to go on opening day. It's like the first day of school. Everybody's happy to be there. Everybody's optimistic. Nobody's been mathematically eliminated except the White Sox. Like it's a great time. Great time to be at the ballpark on opening day.
I wish I could have. I've never made it to an opening day. It's always been school day.
Yeah.
And the parents were always
Right.
like, no.
Yeah.
And then college lived too far away and never matched up with the spring break.
See, I have parents let me cut school not once but twice for opening day. That's why I'm who I am. That explains a lot about me. We will have some opening weekend tickets to give away. Now, opening day sold out, but we got some opening weekend tickets. We'll give away a pair of tickets on tomorrow's show. We'll do that. How about that? That'll be our last show before opening day. So tomorrow's show, be listening, and we'll give away a pair of tickets to see the Royals against the Guardians this weekend at the K. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we're going to talk some Royals baseball. How do the arms look this year for the Royals? They in better shape? Do they have better depth? We'll talk about it. Also, Michael Swain of Fog.net is going to join us for Jayhawk Weekly, and we'll have What Is Wrong With You as well. It's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk, hour number 2 on a Tuesday. How's everyone doing out there? Hope you're enjoying your afternoon. We appreciate you hanging out with us, making us a part of your Tuesday. Here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube stream, our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch us on Facebook, WIBW News. Two-man game today, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis. We've got an hour and a half left with you today as we'll make way at 5:30 for K-State baseball on the K-State Sports Network. Wildcats, Huskers tonight. K-State taking on Nebraska in a renewal of Big 8 and Big 12 hostilities. 5:30 broadcast start from the K-State Sports Network here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So got an hour and a half left with you today. Big hour here, the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to talk some Royals baseball. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up. We've also got Michael Swain joining us, bottom of the hour from Fog.net, 24/7 Sports Network. Jayhawk Weekly coming your way. We'll do a post-mortem on KU basketball, where Bill Self and the Jayhawks go from here, how they might approach the transfer portal, what the roster might look like next season. Also talk some football as well. Spring practice continues for Lance Leipold's Jayhawk football team. That's all coming up a little bit later on this hour. In the 5 o'clock hour, we'll do headlines for it. Again, we get out at 5:30 today. The games that don't mean anything are almost over. Quite literally almost over for the Kansas City Royals. They are 3 outs away from being over. Royals lead the Rangers 3-1 in the bottom of the 9th, although Sam Long has allowed the leadoff man to reach base for the Rangers on a fielding error. So, you know, maybe they let this one get away and it's bad vibes or something. I don't know. Royals lead 3-1. Salvador Perez, 2-run home run, has driven in all 3 Royals runs today. Michael Massey got a couple of hits as well. Chris Bubic started the game. We're going to talk more about him in just a bit. Really good in his final tune-up before the regular season, allowing just 1 run on 5 hits in 5 innings of work. Walked 1, struck out 8, including fanning the side in his first inning of work. Daniel Lynch, a scoreless relief inning with 3 strikeouts. Also scoreless relief work so far from Chris Stratton and Carlos Estevez. And Sam Long trying to finish it out. Now 1 out in the bottom of the 9th in Arlington. A 3-1 Royals lead.
Did you know it's the MLB free game of the day, and it's not blacked out?
Is that right? Yeah, they don't usually black out spring training games.
I guess because
MLB
I don't
TV.
think it's being broadcast.
It is not. I tried to turn it on in my office. AJ Przinsky yelling at me. Who decided to put AJ Przinsky on television?
FanDuel.
There are dozens of members of the mid-2000s Minnesota Twins I would rather have on television than AJ Przinsky.
We've got 2 outs now.
AJ Przinsky, I was watching, this is late in his career. He was with the Braves. I was watching this is when the Braves stunk. They had like a really brief window in the mid-2010s where the Braves were just cheeks. They were not good, which those periods have been few and far between, certainly in my lifetime. But anyway, they were really bad, and they were playing the Rockies. It was a midweek night game in like July or August. Neither team going anywhere. And the Braves were having a bullpen meltdown. And there was a wild pitch. And as Przinsky's chasing it to the backstop, and I think a run is scoring on the play, you could hear Przinsky say, and I can't say what he said, just know that he took the Lord's name in vain and gave the Lord a middle name that is 7 letters long, ends in ing, starts with F. So, and it was very clearly heard on the broadcast. So
I feel like baseball is whenever you have your getaway day game, depending on how bad the team is when it is in the season, you can hear so much happening.
If there's nobody in the ballpark,
yes.
Yeah. When there's nobody in the park, and
a guy pops up and he's so mad.
Oh yeah. The Michael will pick that up for sure. Today's game is very similar in a similar vein. like the ultimate getaway day game, because this is the last one that doesn't matter. You've got 162 and hopefully more for both the Royals and the Rangers. Both teams enter the season with playoff expectations, playoff hopes. A lot of people think the Rangers rather, can win the American League again. Of course, they won the World Series 2 years ago. They should be a little healthier pitching wise. Jacob deGrom is healthy. He started the game today, worked 4 innings, gave up all 3 runs. But this is the ultimate getaway day game because the result doesn't even matter. So you're just up there, get some swings, get limber, get your inning in, and just be done with it. And now the Royals and Rangers are done with it as Sam Long records the final 3 outs. And the Royals win. They finish up exhibition play at 19-12. That is the final Cactus League record for the Royals. 20-12, actually, with the win today. And now it is onward to Kansas City for opening day on Thursday.
I did not realize they played 2 exhibitions at the Rangers. I thought it was just 1 last night.
No, they ran it back today. A lot of teams will do that. Like get a game at a big league stadium. I don't know, get guys accustomed to the third deck.
I mean, like the Nationals do it a lot. They've now signed a contract with the Orioles to go 8 years back and forth on one of these days before opening day.
Interesting.
I just never seen 2 games in a ballpark.
So exhibition play is over for the Royals. In case you missed it earlier today, the Royals made some roster moves that make it very clear who the 26th man on the bench is going to be. It's going to be Cavan Biggio. They sent down Joey Weimer, Drew Waters, Harold Castro got sent back to minor league camp, John Rave, I think. So they're down to 26 guys in big league camp. And I mean, you do the math there. So Cavan Biggio, who was a non-roster invitee, is going to be the 26th man. They have to add him to the 40-man roster, but the Royals have 2 open spots on the 40-man, so that won't be difficult for them to do. They'll just add him to the 40-man roster, and Biggio, the left-hander, will be the 26th man. So the bench is set. Freddie Fermin's the backup catcher, the backup to Salvador Perez, and it's kind of weird to call Fermin a backup because he's going to play a bunch. Dairon Blanco is the legs and an extra outfielder. Michael Garcia, I guess you would call a bench piece. And Cavan Biggio is your 26th man. 3 Royals were added to the injured list yesterday, which is a few days earlier than you have to do it. You don't have to make your 26-man roster official until day of opening day on Thursday. But the Royals added 3 pitchers to the injured list. Alec Marsh, Kyle Wright, and James MacArthur will all start on IL with various maladies. Notably not added to the injured list, Vinny Pasquantino. He's avoided that particular distinction for now and still remains on track as far as anybody knows to play on opening day, though he did not play in either of the exhibitions in Arlington. Anywho, that's the procedural stuff. Let's get back to our Royals week here on 580 Sports Talk and our previews of the Royals in 2025. Yesterday, we talked about the bats in the 4 o'clock hour. Today, we're going to talk about the arms. And we have said plenty, and we've not been the only ones, but we have said plenty about the unlikelihood of the Royals having the same good fortune as last year and having the same 6 guys start all but 5 of the regular season games. Truly a remarkable feat and a big part of the reason why the Royals had the success that they had last season. It's not likely to repeat because, I mean, you watch baseball, right? You're aware of how frequently pitchers get hurt, how infrequently starting pitchers are able to make it to even 150 innings. Never mind 170, 180, 200. Royals had 200-inning guys on their pitching staff last year. It's hard to do that over and over again. The act of pitching a baseball, as everybody knows, is an unnatural motion. It lends itself to injury. Nobody's rooting for Seth Lugo or Cole Reagans or whomever to get hurt. Maybe American League Central hitters are secretly hoping that it happens, but nobody's rooting for that. But you have to be prepared for the probability that the Royals will not have such good injury fortune this year. It is very much worth rooting for. I don't know if you saw, Spencer, did you happen to read the piece that was in the ESPN.com article about the Royals rotation, about their approach to soaking up innings, taking the ball, trying to be efficient, not necessarily worried about strikeouts as much as they are trying to get an out within 3 pitches. It's a really good article if you haven't read it yet, and that goes for you, Spencer, and for everybody listening at ESPN.com. And it is in large part about the Royals because they did have the success they had last year in terms of keeping the same rotation, taking their turns over and over again. It is worth rooting for more of that, not just for the Royals' sake, but for baseball's sake, because baseball as a whole is better if there is a sustainable way to keep starting pitchers healthy. If the Royals have really and truly stumbled upon something, and again, the odds are not necessarily in their favor here, but if the Royals have really stumbled upon a way to keep guys healthy and keep guys in the rotation for 6 months, if there is a way for these guys to be successful while not redlining with every pitch, because that's what you see, right? Anymore, you watch guys pitch and they're flooring it. They're going 8,000 RPM every pitch, and it's little wonder that guys burn out and that elbows blow up and that shoulders wear out. The Royals don't really do that. Quite noticeably, they don't do that. There were a lot of times last year where I watched a Cole Reagan start, and I'd watched the first 2 innings of a Cole Reagan start, and he was at 93, 94 with his fastball. Like, oh, no. This is Cole Reagan's going to touch triple digits. He's way off the pace velocity-wise. But by the middle innings, he'd be 95, 96, 97. He'd run it back up there when the die was cast. When he needed that extra velocity, he could rear back and get it. It's a style of pitching, a craft, if you will, that I think has kind of gone by the wayside because there is so much focus on velocity and so much focus on strikeouts. What's the best way to get a guy out? Make sure he can't touch the ball. Strike him out. It's the best, most efficient way to get somebody out. Well, what's the best way to make sure they can't hit the ball? Throw it faster than they can catch up to. So velocity, or make it spin super fast so they can't get a bat to it. Spin and velocity and more is better because it's more efficient. It's going to keep you in the big leagues longer. It's going to get you paid more, but it also might get you hurt. Well, if there's a way to be successful without redlining every pitch, and the Royals have found it, that's great for baseball, and it's really great for the Royals. And it's really great for the long-term outlooks of guys like Cole Reagan's a 2-time Tommy John survivor, or Seth Lugo, who's coming off a career high in innings pitched and in his mid-30s. I hope it works. I hope that the Royals have found something and that it lends itself to copycats throughout the league, because baseball is better if we have more pitching rotations with the durability and the success that the Royals enjoyed in 2024. But again, given all of the trends around baseball, you can't call it likely. So here's another way to look at how the Royals were successful last year. Beyond the amount of innings pitched by their starters or the amount of starts made by their primary starting pitchers. The Royals threw 1,428 innings last year. That's how many innings were accounted for by the Royals in 162 games. It's not counting the playoffs here. So just in the regular season, 1,428 innings. 193 and a third of those innings were thrown by pitchers who were sub-replacement level, had negative wins above replacement. Some of these guys, these are the guys you forget on the Sporkle quiz, right? Like your negative WAR guys for the Royals last year were James MacArthur, Chris Stratton, Will Smith, Matt Sauer, the Rule 5 guy, remember him? Will Klein, not with the team anymore. Hunter Harvey, who was hurt when the Royals got him and struggled. Dan Altavilla, who wasn't on the team for very long. Colin Selby, who was on the team even less long. And Jonathan Bolin, who made like one appearance. Those were the negative wins above replacement pitchers for the Royals last year. 193 and a third of 1,428 innings. About 21 games worth of innings thrown by guys who actively hurt the team because they were sub-replacement level. For comparison's sake, the Twins, who just missed the playoffs in the American League Central, they had 250 and a third innings thrown by sub-replacement level pitchers. That's a 6-game difference. I think that maybe meant something in the tight wild card race in the American League. The Angels, who were trash and lost 99 games, they had 374 and a third innings pitched by sub-zero wins above replacement arms. That's a 20-game difference, 20 games worth of innings different as far as innings that are being accounted for by guys who do not help you. So the Royals, by and large, had their innings sopped up by guys who were good, guys who helped them, at least guys who were not negatives. So that is what they need to repeat. Pay less attention to the number of starts made, even by Reagans, Lugo, guys like that. Pay attention to how many innings are being accounted for by guys who just stink. You want to avoid that drag factor, if at all possible, from guys who just aren't any good. Because here was the thing about the Royals last year. If they had dealt with injuries in 2024, they were not real equipped to turn those extra starts over to guys who would have been effective. Last year on opening day, the 6th, 7th, and 8th starters on the Royals depth chart, and I know you only carry 5, but go with me here. The 6th, 7th, and 8th starters for the Royals were Daniel Lynch, who was still at that point kind of an unproven big league commodity. Jonathan Bolin was your 7th starter, and your 8th starter might have been Zach Davies, who the Royals picked up for a song before the end of spring training and sent to Omaha as a break glass in case of emergency type. This year, the 6, 7, and 8 starters on opening day, Daniel Lynch, probably still your 6th starter, but do you feel a lot better about Daniel Lynch, the 4th, as a major league pitcher right now than you did at this time last year? You should, given the success he had out of the bullpen last season, given the spring that he had this year. The 7th starter for the Royals and the 8th starter are both working their way back from injury, but they're guys who've had big league success. Alec Marsh was fine last year. He was a 5th starter last year. There's nothing wrong with being a 5th starter caliber guy. Those guys hang around and make a lot of money. Kyle Wright has won 20 games in the major leagues in an era where nobody wins 20 anymore. He's a guy, again, coming off of a major surgery, but somebody with a track record of major league success. And then behind those guys, you have a more promising collection of arms who has proven themselves at the AA and AAA level in the minor leagues. Guys like Noah Cameron, guys like Luinder Avila, guys like Steven Zobak, which may not even be a name you know, but Keith Law was glowing in his praise of Zobak when he got a chance to watch him pitch in a minor league game just a week ago. Wrote him up for The Athletic and said that he believes Zobak stuff can play in the major leagues for a couple of weeks as an injury fill-in right now. The Royals have those guys now. They didn't last year. And that makes a massive, massive difference in how the Royals could withstand a short-term or long-term injury to one of their first 5 starting pitchers. It's still going to be a lot better for the Royals if Seth Lugo and Cole Reagans combine for 400 innings again instead of 260 or fewer. But the floor is a lot higher for the Royals pitching than it was last year. And if their lack of additions on offense make me a little uncomfortable picking the Royals to win the Central, their added pitching depth makes me a little more comfortable with the idea that they can come through and win the division even if there are injuries. Another thing that adds to my confidence when it comes to the Royals pitching staff is the bullpen shapes up a lot better in April or March 25 than it did in March 24, because it's basically the same group that finished so strongly last year. The Royals bullpen from August through their playoff elimination at the hands of the Yankees was outstanding. And you add to that mix a dependable veteran and 2023 All-Star in Carlos Estevez and a healthy Hunter Harvey, who had a nice spring, home run he allowed last night notwithstanding. There's always one guy out of the bullpen that ends up being more valuable, more important than you think he's going to be on opening day. I think Angel Zerpa is going to be that guy this year. There's no reason, stuff-wise, that Zerpa can't be one of the best left-handed relievers in the American League. And he had a terrific spring. And he's still super young. I think Zerpa makes a big step forward this year. And I think he ends up being the guy who Chris Bubich kind of was for the final 2 months last season, because that's who you subtract from last year's end-of-season bullpen mix. You subtract Bubich, and now he's in the starting rotation. I think Zerpa can step into that role and be a late-inning left-handed hammer to go along with Urseg and Estevez and ideally Harvey, and be a collection of 4 guys who you feel really good about in high-leverage close game situations from the 7th inning onward. In whatever order Matt Quatraro chooses to deploy that mix, I think you feel really good about that, especially if his spring performance is a harbinger of some really good things to come for Zerpa. And then behind those guys, you have guys like Sam Long, who had a really nice year last year. You have Daniel Lynch, who was terrific in a relief role last year and now will start the year in that same relief role.
I feel like Zerpa last year was already coming on really well. I think he had his best season in the majors last year, but also longest tenured time that he's pitched. I mean, he 1 game, 3 games, 15 games, 60 games. He came out of 60 games with a 3.86 ERA. Pretty darn good for a guy that you didn't really have much expectation for besides being a solid reliever last year.
Yeah, not much expectation or faith really in Zerpa going into last season, but he really did emerge, and he pitched in some really important spots in the postseason. In the wild card series, got some big outs, and in the division series as well, was called upon in some really important spots. I'd like to see him miss some more bats, but I think the stuff is there for him to be a top-end left-handed reliever in the league. And you're less reliant on Chris Stratton to pick up high-leverage innings. You're less reliant on John Schreiber to face left-handed batters. You can be more judicious about your use of Schreiber. Schreiber should never see a lefty with a game in the balance. Never, ever, ever. Not even if there's a fire. Like, John Schreiber is a right-handed specialist. And the more you can avoid showing him to lefties, bringing him in, by default, well, this is a guy, like last year, he was in Quatraro's trust tree to the point where he was the guy getting called on to pitch the 8th in a 1-run game, no matter who was coming up to bat. Now this year, you can use him a little bit more judiciously because you've got more depth in this bullpen. I really like the Royals pitching. This is a team that is built around run prevention primarily. And if they do win the Central, I think it's going to be because the bullpen is outstanding and because they do have maybe not the same, but some similar injury fortune and are able to keep Cole Reagans making 30 starts, able to get Seth Lugo to make 30 starts, able to get Michael Wacha to 150 innings, 160 innings like they got him to last year. Those things are going to be critical for the Royals to win their division, but they can still, I believe, be a playoff team without that happening because they've added depth and because they've strengthened the bullpen. We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll come back with What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain joins us in just a little bit for Jayhawk Weekly. This is 580 Sports Talk. It's What Is Wrong With You time on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by our guy Ryan Mowinkle, Mowinkle Insurance and Financial Services. Give him a call today, 785-273-1572. Two stories today to try and take down our current champ, the clown coach, the 80-something girls basketball high school coach in New York, who yanked his player's ponytail after his team lost the state championship game earlier this month. Our stories today start with mine. We're going out to Palm Beach County, where a woman struck a bicyclist and then continued on like nothing had happened because she couldn't miss her golf lesson. That's a claim made by police against 76-year-old Ellen Richmond, who was driving her Mercedes around 9:30 in the morning on March 18th. Struck a bicyclist and did not immediately stop the vehicle at the scene of the crash, and continued to drive while dragging the bicyclist and his bicycle down the roadway. She continued driving until she arrived at the Palm Beach Country Club, handing the Mercedes off to the valet. The bicyclist remained on scene after the crash. He had a compound fracture to both major bones in his leg, as well as other lacerations and abrasions. That sounds terrible. No, thank you. Following a canvass of the area, Richmond's vehicle was located by available patrol units. Officers were advised by staff that Richmond had arrived and was taking lessons on the golf course. There was broken headlight glass, a front bumper cover retention clip found on the scene. They were missing from the Mercedes. There was undercarriage damage. When Richmond, was interviewed, she said that, she thought she had hit something, but didn't think it was that big a deal and just continued on to her golf lesson. She was placed under arrest, charged with leaving the scene of an accident with injury, a felony of the second degree. Hit a bicyclist, dragged him for a bit, ruined the guy's leg. Did I hit something? Must have gotten a bunny or a squirrel or something. Maybe some tumbleweed. Anyhow, I got to get on the green. My chipping lesson is this morning. 76 years old. I don't say that there ought to be an age where people can't drive anymore. So I do think there are certainly capable drivers into their 70s and 80s, but there are also not. And
clearly some are.
Yeah, we need to find those people. Anyhow, your story today.
Yes, a Florida man is being accused of stealing $160 worth of lap dances from a strip club after he failed to produce money to pay for them. John Elberson, 39, was arrested at 1:41 a.m. on March 11th at his home in Apollo Bay, Florida, about 10 minutes after he fled the club. He went to Rain Ladies and Gentlemen's Club in nearby Clearwater, across the water from Tampa Bay, and had several lap dances from strippers. But when he finished, he told the staff he, quote, did not have the funds to pay for the services he received, and he left without settling his bill.
Hey, man, I'm sorry. I can't pay for all that.
Yeah. Police wrote on the complaint that Albertson appeared to be under the influence of alcohol but hadn't taken any drugs. They accused him of, quote, intent to appropriate the property, end quote, calling the lap dances the property of Rain's Ladies and Gents. Albertson was charged with petty theft and languished 12 hours in jail before the Pinell County Circuit Court released him without bond. The father of 5 initially drew the ire of
the ire of his longtime girlfriend, who was not happy.
Yes,
on social media. So I was under the impression that these were services you had to pay for up front.
Me too.
Not that I would know anything about that personally. Not that that's anything I've ever paid for up front. But I was under the impression that those services had to be paid for up front and also with tip. Apparently not at this gentleman's club. So, just
I'm sorry, I don't have the money.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, I can't pay for that. My bad. See ya. Yeah. Does that work anywhere? Never mind at a strip club. Has that ever worked anywhere?
No.
Man, that's really funny. I think I'm going to go with that today, and I think that beats the clown coach.
I think it does.
Yeah. I'm not going to pay a lot for these lap dances. That's going to be our winner on What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by our main man, Ryan Mowinkle, Mowinkle Insurance and Financial Services. Give his website a click today. Ryan Mowinkle. That's MOHWINKLE.com. Michael Swain joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline by Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He joins us every Tuesday for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. And Michael, the Kansas men's basketball season is in the books, and really it felt like it ended the minute KJ Adams had to be helped off the floor with about 3 minutes to play in their first round game against Arkansas. Did it feel to you, witnessing it as you did, that was the moment where Kansas maybe lost that basketball game, even though they were ahead with the ball when KJ went down?
Yeah, it's so funny because I've looked back at it, because in the time I'm like looking around trying to see what's going on with KJ, and like 3 quarters watching the game, and in the times I've watched it back, I honestly don't feel that way. Obviously, having KJ out there is a huge deal, but that's not going to change Hunter Dickinson throwing the ball to nobody, right? It's not going to change the other turnovers KU had, and it's one of those things where I don't think it helped KU's psyche not having KJ Adams out there, and all of a sudden KU's closing with the lineup, and it probably hasn't closed the game with, since maybe November, with both AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin out there. So it was one of those things that, God, it's so incredibly sad for KJ that, it's a torn Achilles. It's 9 months basically. And it's just such a killer. But I don't know if I'm pinning the loss or KU collapsing on KJ getting hurt.
Bill Self will always, in his final press conference of the year, even in the immediate aftermath, sometimes in the post-game press conference after the last KU game of the season, he'll always be pretty blunt and kind of say exactly, yeah, this is why this team didn't cut down the nets, and this is what we're going to try and do to improve. So what stood out to you about Self's post-game remarks following the loss to Arkansas, and what maybe tipped his hand about the direction that the Jayhawks are going to take in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, so I think there were really 2 things. One thing I agree with, one thing I really didn't really agree with. The part that I didn't agree with, he brought up Shaq getting hurt and Marco Jackson getting hurt as 2 things that kept KU from being whole. Look, I'm not sure. I don't really agree with that. I don't think if Shaquille Moore is healthy all season, it really changes KU's fate when we've talked about the general roster flaws the team had and just the inconsistency it had. Now, the part I do agree with is that KU's got to evaluate the transfer portal better. And that's something he was pretty blunt about, talking about the fact that fit is a really important part of it, that you have to find the guys that fit your system, and KU's got to do a better job of evaluating. And he said he's going to go through and look and search and see what things KU can do better in evaluating. And I think when you look at the portal this year, look, KU's going to have a lot of spots. Obviously outgoing movement's going to change some things, but, KU's going to go in with 2 spots. I bet you they're probably going to have 4, 5, or 6 by the end of it. So that's a lot of portal addition. And KU's going to have the chance to show if they've learned from last year and even the year before that. Because I think you can look at certain players, whether it be like someone like Rylan Griffin, someone like Nick Timberlake, who filled the need, right? They shot the basketball really well, but did they really fit Kansas under Bill Self? I'm not too sure about that. And so I think it's just a situation where KU's going to have the chance to show, and Self's going to have the chance to show if they've learned from the last 2 years and some of the failing. And there's no better time to show it than when he's got a 5-star recruit, a kid that, could very well go on to be the number 1 player in the next, not this NBA draft, but the next one, in Darren Peterson. So, look, it's going to be a really important offseason for KU, and the portal starts now, and it doesn't really stop until KU has all of its spots filled next year.
We have talked about some of the players who can return possibly for KU next year. And, AJ Storr is probably a guy who might have a better fit somewhere else and might be better suited to move on. Diggy Coit might be a guy who stays for 1 more year. Where do you fall with Rylan Griffin? What do you think his future looks like? Is there a future for him in Lawrence? And what do you think both parties would like to see? Do you think that would be a mutual parting of the ways, or do you think there might be one side more than another that would prefer an outcome when it comes to Griffin's decision for next year?
Yeah, and generally, I feel like a lot of the departures have been pretty mutual over the last few years, really, I think back to maybe Ernest Uday being one that I think probably frustrated some people at Kansas. But what does he need to do? Well, I don't know, guys. I don't get the feeling that Ryland will be back. That's just my feeling right now. Obviously, these things can change. But I think if he were to come back, what are the things that need to change? Well, I mean, he's just got to be more consistent, right? I mean, guys, the numbers for Ryland are really bad over the last couple weeks. Shooting like 15% from the field over the last 5 games. You go back to basically since the Houston game when he went crazy, shooting 25% from the field. For a guy whose number one trait is shooting the basketball, he did not do that very well over really the last third of the season. So the question then is, okay, well, what are the other things that he can do to help you? Well, he struggled defensively. He wasn't a huge impact guy on the glass. And so you run into this issue with Ryan where if he's not shooting the ball really well, what else is he really doing to generate stuff for you? And I think he did some positive things, right? Attacking off the bounce. I thought he did a better job of creating for others over the final few weeks of the season. But there's just some things there that when the shot isn't going in, how much can he really impact you? So I'll be interested to see what happens with him because we've seen over the years, right, guys that are in Bill Self's system as transfers, that second year there is improvement. And so if he does stick around, I'll be really interested to see what that improvement is, but I'm not super convinced that's going to happen.
We're joined by Michael Swain of Fog.net here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Michael, Lawrence got a little preview of what's coming next year when Darren Peterson came to town over the weekend for the Grind Session World Championships. What did you think of what you saw for the KU signee?
I thought he was decent. I was talking to someone about this today. I don't get the feeling Darren was going full pedal to the metal because I've watched his games and you can tell when he's like, oh yeah, he's got it. And he is in that mode that he is going to show that he's one of the best players in the country. I think the 2 games they played, the other team really did a great job of trying to take the ball out of Darren's hands. He's such a team player that he's not a guy that's going to go shot hunt when he's being double teamed. And you saw a lot of that. I think some of the things that he showed that were really encouraging, general feel, he doesn't panic, and he does a great job of making his teammates better. And I think those are some things you look at the point guard position for KU that are so important because obviously everyone knows Darren can score, right? That is not a shot. Yeah, I'm not breaking any news here, right? He's a guy who scored 60 points in a high school game against A.J. DeBonsta, the number 1 player in the country. So everyone knows that he can score, but how can he do those other things? And I think getting to see him in person, you get a better feel and a better appreciation for that. And even then, I still feel like he wasn't going 100%. I think he was probably going 65, 70%. I just don't think he really went full pedal to the metal. And I think that part is also exciting. You can say that, his team won the Grind Session Championship and he had some really good stat lines and you're still leaving there being like, man, I don't even think he was really like putting it all forward. So I'm really excited about him and really excited to see kind of what it looks like when he does, for example, I've got the dates. Madison Square Garden Champions Classic. That's the game when I think we're really going to see the coming out party for Darren. So I'm really excited to see that. I know it's a while away, but there's no reason you can't get excited about it right now.
Who are you most confident will start? Let's forecast it all the way through this spring, this summer to the Champions Classic. Who are the names that you would write in pen in Bill Self's starting 5 right now for that Champions Classic game for next year?
Darren Peterson and Flory Badunga. That's it. That's all I think. I think the other spots are going to come from the portal. KU desperately needs a 4 out of the portal. Really interested to see the direction they go there. Big wing, Josh Dix from Iowa, someone I've got my eye on for that spot. And then a combo guard. Like I think 3 starters are coming out of the portal. And then I think some of the bench pieces, someone like Marco Jackson, coming off injury, can he be kind of your 7th man maybe? I think that could be a nice way for him to get back into the flow, playing basketball again, and really getting to play because he's someone that needs to play basketball. He hasn't played a lot in his life. So I think right now, Darren, Flory, those are the 2 I'd say that start.
Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us here for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Let's pivot to football as we wrap up here, Michael, as spring practice continues for Lance Leipold's Jayhawks. You got to hear from Daryl Agpalsa, the offensive line coach for the Jayhawks today. And obviously KU lost some real muscle up front from last year's offensive line that really gelled into one of the best in the Big 12 What does that position group look like this year? How much confidence is there that they're going to come out with a group of 5 starters that they feel comfortable with for day one?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's another offseason where you've got some serious questions about the offensive line. And, last year those questions got answered. And obviously it was a really, really good unit. And I'm out of the mode now, where for so long you're asking questions about the offensive line. In the back of your head, you know it's going to be terrible. Well, now you're asking questions about the offensive line. In the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, but they've just kind of figured it out. So, I don't know how concerned I really am. So right now, the big question right now, it's going to be kind of the final 2 starting spots, right? Kobe Baines is going to start at right guard. Bryce Foster is going to start at center. And Calvin Clements is going to start at left tackle. Derek also said Calvin's the guy at left tackle, and he hopes he's going to be here for the next couple of years. So that gives you every indication of what KU thinks about him. So the question is going to be, okay, who starts at left guard, who starts at right tackle? Well, the guy that was probably going to start at right tackle had to have hand-finger surgery and is out for the rest of spring, and Nolan Gorska. The other guy who is maybe going to be your left guard, Tavake, I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try, but transferred from UCLA. And those 2 guys have now been hurt. And Tavake got back on the practice field today, so he's been able to kind of start to ramp up a little bit, but even then he's not going to be full go during spring. So now all of a sudden you're looking at it and saying, okay, you got Jack Tanner, a transfer from Tulsa, who's working at right tackle right now. And then you've got James Livingston, a program guy who's been around for a while, who's working at left guard. So it's just one of these situations where we're not really going to know until camp, just because that's when everyone should be healthy and KU should be able to get everyone together and consistently getting reps. So right now, 3 starters, I think pretty not nailed on. And then it's a question of how those other 2 spots fill out. And I think right now, if you had made me pick, I think Gorska and Tavake would be the 2 other starters.
Michael Swain covers the Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a VIP subscriber to the 24/7 Sports Network and get Michael's outstanding insight into all things KU. Check him out on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk every Tuesday for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you again next week.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Talk next week.
That is Michael Swain. We will step aside for a timeout. When we come back, we'll wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. .455 and 580 Sports Talk, wrapping up this 4 o'clock hour. Dan and Spencer with you today. Our thanks again to Michael Swain of Fog.net for checking in for Jayhawk Weekly. I'm still not over your what is wrong with you, Spencer. That guy went to the strip club and he didn't pay for anything. And he's walked out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not paying for any of the entertainment that I received. why did the entertainment just kind of take his word for it? Yeah, he's good for it. He looks like he's good for it. I'll go ahead and perform here. I don't need the cash up front.
I don't understand how
that
they
is
work.
mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
There are certain services. Let me be careful here. There are certain services that I think you probably want cash up front for, right?
Yeah.
And not just those kinds of services. There are a lot of other, like if you do any contract work, I think that there are many of you, perhaps who listen, who've done some like contract work, and you'd like, a little bit up front, just so you know that you're going to be paid. I thought that strip club employees would be among those who, will take the money up front for services rendered. I just boggles my mind. I can't.
Do they have? I don't. Do they have entry fees? Like, who knows? Like, is there like a door charge?
Sometimes you got to pay a cover. I've been told. I'm sure there is something. Did I ever tell you about the time I delivered sandwiches to a strip club middle of the day? Yeah. So I was in college to make a little money during the summer. I delivered sandwiches for Jason's Deli back in. I got Jason's Deli just down the hill here. Love Jason's Deli. Love the Club Royale is my personal favorite. Anyhow, I was a delivery driver for them, and we got an order one day from TK Centerfolds, and I knew what that place was, and I was the only driver on duty, so it was like 1:30 in the afternoon. I took a bag full of sandwiches, $30 worth of sandwiches. I took them to the strip club, and the young lady who came out to pay for the sandwiches was not wearing a top. And I received payment all in cash, and my tip
received a little more than a payment, though.
Singles. It was all in singles. Of course it was. Anyway, that's my story about delivering sandwiches to a strip club. Let's take a break. We got one more half hour of 580 Sports Talk coming up in just a little bit. We've got one more half hour because we're making way for K-State baseball at 5:30. We'll do our 580 Sports Talk headlines, then we'll wrap things up. Stay with us. 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final half hour of this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis hanging out with you today. Brendan Dworzinski in Evansville, Indiana with Washburn basketball. Half the Final Four has been set. The other half will be set tonight at the Ford Center. Washburn.
Upset.
Yeah, we had an upset in the second game.
Big upset.
A big choke. Number 2 seed West Liberty was up 17 points on the number 7 seed Cal State Dominguez Hills and blew it. And so it is the Toreros, I believe it is, of Cal State Dominguez Hills who advance to the Final Four. They will play Dallas Baptist, the 3 seed, who earlier today won their semifinal over Lake Superior State. Third game of the day will be the number 1 seed Nova Southeastern against the 8th seed Assumption. And then to round out the night with an 8:30 tip-off from Evansville, the Washburn Ichabods taking on the Lenoir-Rhine Bears. Brendan Dworzinski will be on the call on our sister station, your home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9, with an 8:15 pregame and an 8:30 tip-off scheduled. You can also watch the game if you'd like on ESPN+. That's where Brendan is today and hopefully for the rest of the week. Hopefully he hangs around. He's got 2 more games to call after tonight. This is the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online, 580WIBW.com. Special hello to everybody watching on our YouTube stream. Our YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can also watch us on Facebook at WIBW News. Get in on the live chat if you are watching on YouTube. There's the live chat feature. You can interact with us and your fellow listeners throughout the show. You can also text the program, 785-272-9429. Only a half hour left on the show. As I mentioned, we've got Kansas State baseball coming your way tonight. K-State against Nebraska on the Diamond. That is a home game for the Cats. They will play tonight at Toynton Family Stadium. 5:30 broadcast time, a 6 o'clock first pitch set on the K-State Sports Network. So we will have that game for you tonight. K-State playing some good ball, off to a really nice start in conference play. I think they won their first 5 games in Big 12 play. They're 5-1 in the Big 12, 15-8 overall, and they will be playing Nebraska for a second time this year. Beat them 9-6 out in Frisco, Texas, back on March 2nd. So a second meeting this year between the Wildcats and the Huskers. Hope you enjoy that one tonight. Again, that'll be right here, 580 WIBW FM 104.9.
Have you seen KU baseball?
Yeah, they're off to a really nice start.
Yeah, 18-6.
They certainly had a lighter load in the non-conference than K-State did. That was kind of by design. Obviously, yeah. K-State coming off a super regional last year, wanted to continue to test itself, and KU was able to schedule some games against some beatable teams, and they did. They've taken care of some business so far. They are 3-3 in conference play. They took a series off Baylor, lost 2 out of 3 at Arizona State last weekend.
They had a non-con game against Arizona.
Yeah, they did. They went down to Tucson on Tuesday, and then they played the weekend at Arizona State in I guess in Phoenix. Are they not playing at what was it called? Packard Field there in Tempe anymore? They play in Arizona State plays in Phoenix. Anyway, nobody cares. KU 3-3 in league play. K-State 5-1. We've got more K-State baseball coming on Friday here on 580 WIBW. That's an off day for the Royals. They open on Thursday, and then Friday's always that spare rain day that you get around an opening day game. So Friday night, we got more K-State baseball that we will bring you as the Wildcats will be taking on Texas Tech at Toynton Family Stadium, first of a 3-game series. So you'll be able to check that one out on Friday. A couple of K-State baseball games on your airwaves this week. Right now, though, because we only have but a short time left in the program today, let's get into our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We will start with the seismic news that will have a major impact on the NCAA women's basketball tournament and the Kansas State Wildcats. From The Athletic, USC's Juju Watkins sustains season-ending knee injury, will undergo surgery. It's a torn ACL for arguably the best player in women's college basketball. Watkins was injured in the first quarter of last night's round of 32 game for USC against Mississippi State. USC was able to rally and win without their star. In fact, they won pretty handily, and they advanced to the Sweet 16, but they will be, even as the number 1 seed, certainly a diminished version of themselves when they take on the Kansas State Wildcats in the Sweet 16 in Spokane. That is going to be a 7 o'clock tip-off on Saturday night. You'll be able to hear that game right here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. Pre-game coverage on Saturday at 6:30 or immediately following Royals baseball if the Royals run long on Saturday afternoon. And we'll have the tip-off of that one for you at 7. And certainly the equation is different now for K-State because they do not have to deal with the most gifted scoring guard in the country in Juju Watkins. But USC showed in routing Mississippi State, even without Watkins last night, they are more than just a one-player show. Kiki Iriafen had 36, I think, last night in the post.
She did the Stanford
transfer. Yeah, because I remember watching her at Stanford last year, and she had a big game in the round of 32 when one of their stars, I think it was Cameron Brink, their star, had fouled out of the game. Yeah. And Iriafen stepped up huge and led Stanford to a win in the round of 32, and she stepped up big in place of Juju Watkins last night. So that's going to be a handful. It's not going to be, oh, Juju's out, K-State's going to be necessarily favored to advance now, but the odds did get better for Jeff Mitty's Wildcats in Saturday's Sweet 16 matchup, just for the worst possible reason, because not only is Juju Watkins a great player for that USC team, she is must-see TV. Like, I know this year, the TV ratings, by and large, for the women's basketball tournament are down because Caitlin Clark is not playing. Yeah. Caitlin Clark was the draw for the women's basketball tournament last year. That being said, this is still the second most watched NCAA women's basketball tournament of all time, at least for the first 2 rounds, because people still maintain interest. Maybe not Caitlin Clark level interest, but still a high level of interest in this women's basketball tournament. And one of the many reasons for that is Juju Watkins. She is an outstanding player. If you have not seen her play, it is your loss, and it is unfortunate you're going to have to wait possibly another full year to get to see her play a college basketball game. Just a devastating injury. It's awful for the tournament. It's awful for USC, and really, really sad to see that last night. But it certainly changes the terms of K-State's first Sweet 16 game in 23 years. The Wildcats and the Trojans in Spokane, Saturday night, 7 p.m. start time. Again, we'll have the broadcast for you right here on 580 WIBW. Next headline, Spencer.
Yes, from ESPN.com, Cam Ward throws at Pro Day. Should be all Titans need to see. Quarterback Cam Ward believes he has solidified himself as a top overall pick in next month's NFL draft. He said on Monday after Miami's Pro Day, the Heisman Trophy finalist worked out in front of more than 90 NFL team staffers, including a full contingent from the Titans, who have the number 1 overall pick. At one point during the workout, Ward completed a pass and was seen speaking to the Titans general manager, Mike Borgonzi, and president of football ops, Chad Brinker, after the play. So, yes, it's safe to say that Cam Ward most likely going to be the number 1 pick in this year's draft.
And if not by the Titans, then by someone else, because there's also some reporting to Ron Davenport from ESPN.com saying essentially price of the brick just went up. If you want to get to number 1 now, and you want to pry Cam Ward away from the Titans, you had better be ready to pony up. Sources telling Adam Schefter that Tennessee is still willing to listen to offers for the first pick, but it will now take an even stronger package for the Titans to move down. I like Cam Ward. Seems like a good kid, good head on his shoulders. It's entertaining to watch at Miami. Do I think he's the kind of franchise transforming talent at quarterback that you would typically take with the no doubt number 1 overall pick? Maybe. I'm not
sold yet.
This isn't a slam dunk. This isn't an Andrew Luck. Remember that name. We'll get back to him in just a minute.
Yeah, we will.
This isn't a Trevor Lawrence. This isn't one of those. At the top of the draft for me. He is by far the best prospect. I don't know how much draft stuff you've been reading, Spencer, but there's some people out there starting to talk themselves out of Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
And part of that is just we got to have something to talk about. We still got a month before the draft. So some of this is just grist for the content minds, right? Grist for the mill. But Cam Ward is very clearly 1-1 in this draft when it comes to quarterbacks. Like, he is QB1 in this draft. He is QB1 with a bullet, and he has impressed the Titans enough that they are either going to take him or demand a lot, a king's ransom, if you will, in return for that pick. I said we mentioned Andrew Luck. Let's do it on our next headline from ESPN.com. Stanford football needs reset. Fires football coach Troy Taylor. You may have seen a headline a week ago about Taylor. ESPN reported that 2 outside firms had found Taylor bullied and belittled female athletic staffers, sought to have an NCAA compliance officer removed after she warned him of rules violations, and reportedly made inappropriate comments repeatedly to another woman about her appearance. That's not real cool. It's not typically the kind of thing you can get away with, especially when you've gone 3-9 for 2 consecutive seasons. But in the immediate aftermath of that reporting, the Stanford program, particularly Stanford general manager Andrew Luck, stood behind Taylor, who had been hired away from Sacramento State 2 seasons ago. That changed today. Why? Who can say? But it changed today as a statement was released by Luck. It said, quote, "Since beginning my role as general manager, I have been thoroughly assessing the entire Stanford football program. It has been clear that certain aspects of the program need change. Additionally, in recent days, there has been significant attention to Stanford investigations in previous years related to Coach Taylor. After continued consideration, it is evident to me that our program needs a reset. In consultation with university leadership, I no longer believe that Coach Taylor is the right coach to lead our football program. Coach Taylor has been informed today, and the change is effective immediately." Here's why this is interesting. We have heard now more often about major college athletic programs in the revenue sports. I think we've heard it more in men's basketball.
Yeah.
But we're hearing about it more in football too, having general managers effectively.
Yeah.
Responsible for the acquisition of talent. That's what you think when you think of a general manager, right? They're responsible for the acquisition of talent, making sure the NIL stuff goes through, making sure recruiting and the transfer portal are all in order. Don't normally think of the general manager as the guy hiring and firing coaches.
Usually that's the AD.
Right. Andrew Luck's not the athletic director, but
no, but I guess he has carte blanche to do what he wants.
Yeah, he may as well be. I don't know who the AD at Stanford is, but Andrew Luck is apparently within his rights to walk into that man's office and say, "This is my office now. I am in charge."
Stanford's athletic director is, I just lost it here. Stanford's athletic director is Bernard Muir. Yeah.
He's about to resign, in fact, by the end of the academic year. So,
well, maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe he's a little checked out and just let Andrew Luck do what he wants. Anyhow, so Stanford needs a new head football coach in late March. That is not ideal circumstances for any football program. Kansas did all right when they had to jettison Les Miles around this time frame a few years back, and they ended up with Lance Leipold. Stanford, different kind of job than Kansas for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, honestly, it's part of the reason Jim Harbaugh's an all-time great coach is he had Stanford football cooking and then left it in such a good spot that David Shaw could keep it cooking for as long as he did before it finally ran out of steam. Anyhow, general managers in college sports, you're hearing it more and more and very strongly, and now they can just fire coaches, I guess. Anyway, you got one more headline for us, Spencer?
Yes, I do. So last week, actually a week ago today, there were 2 play-in games for the NCAA tournament, correct?
Yeah, I watched them both.
You did. The second game of which had Alabama State, who won the game, taking on St. Francis out of Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Yes, a week removed from being in the play-in game. St. Francis University in Pennsylvania announced its intentions to move from Division I to Division III in athletics Tuesday. The move will be made after summer 26, during the summer of 2026, according to the release. Obviously, we just talked about the men's basketball program doing what they did, but yeah, they are moving from Division I to Division III. It comes after an extensive review of their athletic programs. Upon review, a move to D3 would be beneficial in their minds.
So part of the statement from the very Reverend Joseph Lehman, that's what the article says. The very Reverend. I wonder how you get to be a very Reverend. Anyhow, this was not an easy nor a quick decision for the Board of Trustees. The governance associated with intercollegiate athletics has always been complicated and is only growing in complexity based on realities like the transfer portal, pay for play, and other shifts that move athletics away from love of the game. For that reason, as a board, we aim to best provide resources and support to our student athletes in this changing environment. I do not think this will be the only school that makes this move. And it's not as though this is unprecedented, right? Like Hartford did it really recently. Birmingham Southern did it about 20 years ago before they ultimately had to like close the entire university. There have been other schools that have done this.
I remember seeing a couple months ago that there were rumors that this was going to happen once the pay for play thing was going to come into existence, that like the revenue sharing.
Yeah, the revenue share as mandated by the House of Representatives.
Yes. Once that passed, there's some journalist out there said, don't be surprised if you see athletic universities with their athletics moving from the Division I level down.
And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you know what? You may lose some of the exposure that being Division I might get you to a certain extent. But how much exposure are you really getting if you're St. Francis of Pennsylvania?
Well, that's what I was about to look up.
Your peer institutions, you've got a lot of peer institutions in the Northeast that are playing Division III athletics. There's nothing wrong with being a Division III athletic department. The only thing you lose, well, you don't have athletes that are on scholarship for athletics. Obviously, Division III is non-scholarship. But you lose the chance that maybe you get a game on ESPN.
Yeah, and I honestly, looking at their private university, obviously, but looking at their enrollment, they're on par with Division III universities.
Yes, they most certainly are.
1,691 undergraduates and about 550 postgraduates.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense for schools like this to do this, and there's no shame in it. And obviously, it's. I feel bad for the athletes who are on scholarship who are going to have to find somewhere else to play in a year and change. That's obviously unfortunate for them. It's unfortunate for the coaches who got to that Division I level, but it's better for the universities in the long run. And I think honestly, college athletics will be better off if the schools that are involved can afford to be the schools that pay for play. Because Birmingham Southern couldn't do it, and they don't exist anymore. Like they even dropped down to Division III, and that school doesn't exist anymore in Alabama. 20 years on, there are some other problems.
And I think too, when you look at a program like that, they're going to go and they're going to play with schools in Pennsylvania. In that area, they're going to be in the President's Athletic Conference.
It will be better for the learning institution. 100%. We'll take a break. Come back with a final word on this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. Visit greatlifetopeka.com to learn more about their 5 outstanding golf courses in the Topeka area. It's getting to be about that time of year. Final word time. Spencer, hit me.
So it's as easy as this. Go Bods. Hopefully we're talking about a win tomorrow into the Final Four.
Darn straight. Go Ichabods. Washburn and Lenore-Rhine tonight. 8:30 tip. Listen to our guy, Brendan Dworzinski, on our sister station, the home of the Ichabods, Country 106.9. His pregame at 8:15. The tip-off at 8:30. You can watch it on ESPN+. There are watch parties all across the capital city, including with our friends at Skinny Sports Bar and Grill. No excuse not to follow the Bods and root them on in the Elite Eight tonight. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. For Spencer, I'm Dan. This has been 580 Sports Talk on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW. K-State Baseball is next. Good night.